Hello everybody, my name's Simone Walker and I'm one of the Deputy Secretaries here at Communities and Justice.
And I'm Joanna Quilty, CEO of the New South Wales Council of Social Service.
We thought we'd take this opportunity to address some of the questions that each of us have been asked by our service providers. We did a previous video where we outlined that really what we want to make sure is that we get great continuity of service for vulnerable clients, but also to ensure that our service providers feel secure in their funding, and we want to reiterate that today.
So thanks Simone for having me back. Obviously very uncertain times and giving rise to lots of concern, confusion and some questions for service providers out there. So we'll get underway. So the Prime Minister's announcement the other night, which listed further prohibited activities, has certainly generated some of that confusion, particularly for community centres or neighbourhood centres and for youth centres, because they were listed as activities that now need to cease. Whereas previously there had been some strong messages coming from DCJ that if you're a funded service and you're supporting vulnerable people in the community, then you're an essential service and you need to continue. So Simone, what advice would you give to neighbourhood centres and to youth services in particular about whether they need to stay open, how they should be supporting vulnerable people in the community?
Thanks, Joanna. So what we know is that the purpose of the messages from the Prime Minister was to ensure that people were not congregating together. There's a lot of services that neighbourhood centres and youth services provide or can provide that could be direct phone contact with clients. That sort of thing can continue. But we've also had advice that homelessness services provided from those centres and services like food services or food bank services can also continue to be provided.
So my next question is in relation to recontracting processes, of which there are numerous that are underway at the moment, but they are at various different stages. So some are well advanced, many in the TEI space are almost at the point of being ready to sign a contract, whereas others, for example, specialist homelessness services, their contract discussions weren't meant to commence until much later in the year. And they're now feeling like with the whole coronavirus crisis upon us, that perhaps it's not even going to be possible to start those discussions then. So really just wanting assurance that there will be flexibility and recognition that for some, yes, they're ready to go, and for others, things will need to be delayed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for providers where we're very close to landing their contracts, my preference is to get that done, because I do think that gives people a sense of security about their contract. The next question might be, what if we're not delivering in line with that pre-negotiated contract? And that's actually something that we need to talk about as a sector, because I think we're going to need to talk about how we mobilise the workforce if other essential services need the support that we can give them. So we'll know we have the BAU contracts in place, but do we need to actually think about what else is it that we need to do in the next 6 to 12 months? But I'm keen to land anything that's ready to go. Yeah,
because obviously some group programs, events and those kinds of things that were scheduled to occur are no longer going to be able to occur.
Absolutely.
So how do you provide support and look after vulnerable people, but also if you do have some spare capacity, how could that be used elsewhere in the system?
Yeah. And certainly we've been approached by people, for example, who usually provide supported play groups, who can't do that. There are some good online opportunities, but if you do have extra capacity in your staffing, people are keen to put their shoulder to the wheel as part of the sector. And so we're going to look at developing what's the mobilisation strategies, because we have people with great skills who can work across a whole range of sectors, be it child protection, housing and homelessness, domestic violence, and we want to make sure that we're supporting those services too.
I think above or kind of across the board, an issue for services and where they really want some assurances is that this isn't about funding cuts or job losses, and that there's no appetite for that kind of thing to happen.
Certainly, we have communications going out today, particularly for the TEI providers, just confirming that people will continue to get paid. And continue to get paid even though we know that there's some big things that are happening at the moment about the face-to-face, which means that they won't necessarily meet their contractual arrangements. The important thing that we emphasised the last time is keep the conversation going with your contract manager.
Simone, another question that is frequently raised with me is that services are still having problems accessing personal protective equipment and essential supplies such as toilet paper and even food. I guess I'm interested to know what is it that DCJ can do centrally to try and make some of those things happen more quickly and to be there as needed.
It's fair to say that all government departments are trying to secure their supply chains for personal protective equipment, and what we're making sure that we do at DCJ is include our funded service providers in any requests that we make. So that's been what we've decided to do centrally, is really think about what does personal protective equipment look like inside a residential provider, inside a face-to-face provider for our child protection workers, and we're treating the sector as a group. So we're putting in requests that would cover the sector.
Great, but no sense of when those supplies are going to be available yet?
I think at this time it's hard to say. It's fair to say there is a hierarchy, of course, in the sector and in government about the use of personal protective equipment, but that we are at the table for that.
And then training for how you manage infection for good hygiene management. Has any thought been given to that?
So we've got some really good online resources, and we'll make sure that the email address and the contact for that comes up with the video. They're short bursts of information that give people a good sense of what they need to do when they're working with clients, after working with clients, and in preparation for working with clients. So thanks everybody. We want to really encourage you to send your questions through to the email address that you see below, but also through to NCOSS, who's a really great channel for providers. And a whole range of people come through you, don't they, Joanna?
They do. We've had lots of requests and inquiries over the last week, and we want that to continue.
There'll be lots of channels for people to communicate with us through. There's going to be a large teleconference with TEI providers early next week. We also know that Larry Morgan-Thomas, our ED of Partnerships, is meeting weekly with our contract managers, and we want to make sure that we pass the same messages through those groups. So online we'll have a whole range of engagement opportunities that you can make the most of. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope this has been helpful, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. So thanks so much, Joanna.
Thanks everyone, and thank you, Simone.